of this summer school idea. Yes, each person representing a different country. This was very visible during this presentation. Now we will move to the last final presentation, which will focus mostly on the European dimension of the reforms. So please.
I would like to add that we were joined by the Rector of the University, Vice Rector of the University for Research and International Cooperation.
Dzień dobry, good morning. I know all of you are a little tired, so we're going to try to make it as short as we can. We are here to present the report on the European level, and we will just start summing up what was the structure of the report and what is the structure of the presentation. First of all, we will skim in general aspects okay, is it necessary?
It's not. You prefer?
Okay. First of all, we will just skim the general aspects of the genesis of the crisis. Second of all, what has been the European Union focus on austerity and its attitudes towards Germany's fear. This is how we have entitled this part. Also, the political answers of the EU to the economic problems, the effects of the EU crisis management on democracy, and some conclusions. First of all, we have the genesis of the crisis. Some are just too big to fail. At the European Union level, the crisis started as a banking system crisis due to the liquidity problems. This means private institutions, big private institutions, and also public institutions were having these liquidity problems. So the national response to these problems was policies aimed to bail out the banks using taxpayers' money. Governments, governments of different countries in Europe saw and had an approach of these big financing institutions that reached bankruptcy as being too big to fail. This is TBTF. So this led to impossibility for some countries within the Eurozone to repay or refinance their government debt without assistance of third parties. This is also called, there's something wrong here. So, the genesis of the crisis, we continue. As we know, primarily was manifesting at the Eurozone, but it also affected some other member states which haven't adopted the euro as their national currency. Due to this financial predicament, there were effects on the real economy. We saw historic decreases of gross domestic product, GDP, and high rates of unemployment. The countries in the Eurozone that were more affected, as we all know, was Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Cyprus. And we can also find some differences of growth between the EU 27 and the Eurozone economy. This, for example, Poland avoided the recession, but countries like Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria experienced economic hardships. So what has been the answer to the crisis? The EU was mainly focused on austerity measures, as we all know. And we have mixed these measures with the fact that Germany is the one who's been leading this idea of implementing austerity measures. So for the past 2 years, the EU policy regarding the economic crisis in the area of the discourse was basically, the speech was about stronger integration, collaboration, and collective compromise among the member states. However, when it comes to the application, what was applied was a German approach based on austerity, as we said, and price stability at the expense, some scholars may say, of economic growth. In June 2013, the IMF admitted that the handling of the crisis in Greece and the measures of austerity applied in Greece weren't the best option, that they were too optimistic in what they may result. Also, the austerity packages in Italy and Ireland have been raising the question of their effectiveness. So, watching this, we can say there is the question of austerity comes up is it the best solution for a country's sovereign debt crisis? And also it gives us the question of how is it the EU handling managing this crisis? So, as we see, there is already some voices or some critics to the austerity measures, to them from the IMF. So the question that comes to mind after this is why is the EU still pushing forward for harsh austerity measures? And why do the member states continue down this path, and why does Germany insist on it? On the Germany level, we can we try some answers, we try some hypotheses, if you want to put it like that. First of all, that Germany's historical fear of hyperinflation due to the experience of the Weimar Republic. The second one is that in Germany, the national interest of the country has not felt the direct effect of the crisis. And the third one is because of the structure of ideological edifice behind German economic orthodoxy that has shaped the debate in the country in a specific manner that is by no means characteristic for other countries in the EU. So, in the level of Germany, who is pushing the austerity measures, we can find that the five most important parties in Germany have some sort of consensus about this, what they call the ordo-liberal tradition, which is the orthodoxy of liberalism. So, there is in the mainstream neoclassic belief in the need for stricter fiscal rules is shared by Social Democrats and also has strong support in the German Green Party. So, even though this ordo-liberal tradition may explain why the austerity measures are pushed in by Germany, what happened in the European level? So, at the European level, what we can say and what we have found is that Europeans, politicians have proven to be incapable of directing stimulus toward productive public investment and fostering demand, while the public continues to reject tax increases to cover the future deficits that today's stimulus would create. Also, another reason is that it seems that there is no agreement at the European Union on the question of who should pay for the banks, the states, and for wrong decisions made earlier. And the fact that the austerity is already being contested or criticized in some circles, in some opposition parties in different countries. It's also putting forward the idea that the EU should start focusing more on socially oriented policies. For example, unemployment in the countries in the south. So this is kind of an introduction for everything, and now my colleague will present some more charts in the second part of the presentation.
So we basically try to put together the presentation we developed with the interview we had, and I tried to integrate those interviews in in a coherent, so far coherent presentation. So the strategies towards the crisis can be divided in roughly a period of two different parts. A first period, which the aim of this initial strategy was to implement temporary solutions for a crisis that seemed of temporary nature. So the first two policies adopted both in 2009, one in April, the other in November 2009, were aimed basically to boost the private economy and the private sector, and let's say, to boost also these sectors that seem to be of seem to have a better future, like green economy or I don't know, car market. But then in the deepening of the crisis, in the aftermath of the crisis, when the crisis actually touched also countries like Spain and Italy, which in the 90s were economically doing better than the other, than Greece and Ireland. The adoption of other measures was implementing other solutions, we can say, of some kind of coherent background. And the experts that we interviewed, both political and economic experts, were quite sharing the same opinion. That, I mean, the solutions adopted were that didn't work so far, and we also saw that most of the legal terms adopted in these documents were already present in the European context, in the institutions that preceded also the ESM, and especially, for example, the imposed 3% deficit limit on countries was already not respected both by Germany and France in the past. So we can see that actually there has been no legal developments so far right now. The only development that we can identify right now is the provision that aims to punish those countries that were actually going against these norms. But we asked ourselves, is this norm actually, it didn't realize so far, but will it actually work in the future? Well, it seems to us that the norm is of general inefficiency, and that it would be a risky action for an individual state to bring another state in front of the European Court of Justice and to impose a 0.1 GDP fee on this country. And also, we asked to the experts, are those instruments sufficient to provide the liquidity to countries which are in need of it? Well, the ESM right now has, let's say, a wallet of 700 billion euros, of which just 80 billion are actual money, and the rest is just insurance of further credits. So the experts we interviewed told us that actually this sum can seem a quite huge sum for countries like Poland with let's say, generally speaking, smaller GDP, but in the general context of crisis with countries like Italy with individual debt, public debt, which is higher than 100 trillion euros right now, those instruments don't seem sufficient right now. So, and on the other side, does the policy adopted so far right now to just give money for, let's say, to fix as a temporary situation, just to fix the current situation. Does this policy actually work to give money without any long-term solution? Dr. Klimovic, which we interviewed, was quite clear in saying that giving money to implement just temporary solutions and plus giving money to private institutions, not to, let's say, to public, to individual governments, doesn't seem the right thing to do right now. And here are some figures my colleagues explained quite better than I did, but here is the figure, for example, of the youth unemployment in Europe right now, which in the 2013 exceeded in countries like Italy and Spain the 40%, let's say. So we don't think that those policies worked so far. And is austerity actually working? We talked about the 3% exceeding of the budget, but the experts we interviewed were quite frankly against this assumption that austerity should work for each country on the same level. So Dr. Klimovic told us that there is no actual economic theory that austerity might work even on individual people. So we don't see why it should work on individual between individual states as well. And as you may know, quite important economists such as Paul Krugman declared to be against this, the policies adopted lately in individual countries in the Eurozone, such as the balanced budget. I can tell you the case of Italy, where the balanced budget was included in the constitution nighttime with 20 minutes of discussion. So we might also ask if politicians knew what they were actually signing, what they were actually voting. And you can see that in countries affected more by the crisis, the actual GDP growth has been limited, if not actually negative in the last couple of years, 2 years. On one side, there's do politicians really understand what they are voting, what they are about to adopt? And on the other side, does the democratic, the institution at the European level provide the sufficient democratic instruments? We saw that, for example, in institutions like the ESM, countries like Germany and France can together, if they are together pushing for one norm, they can adopt it with so far no oppositions to it, constituting the 47% of the general share. So we wonder also about the political effects, democratic effects that the crisis had so far in the European context. We can say that the European institutions they are quite unpopular right now. There is a lack of accountability and legitimacy, being the European Parliament the only elected institution, and there is no real physical contact between the citizens and the MPs. You can see here in countries like Slovenia, there is less than 20%. No, Slovakia is less than 20% of the turnout in the last European election. In countries like Belgium and Luxembourg, where we can say that the physical presence of the parliament is more, I don't know, you can actually see how the parliament is working. There is a turnout of the 90%, but they are the only cases right now. Not even in France, where it touches just the 40%. The main concerns at in a scholar level are first of all, the increase of power of the European institutions with a lack of control right now of individual parliaments, and the question that doesn't seem so clear about the divisions of the competencies between the governments and the European institutions. And Dr. Klimovic, as we see here, told us that the EU in the very beginning was an equal partnership, while right now the institutions seem designed and just to be just to those countries with big countries with a stable economy, while actually Europe is right now composed of 28 different economies, not so constant, not so stable, and doesn't seem the best way to represent this general context. Here you can see the general share inside the ESM, which is the organism providing for loans at the European level. You can see that countries like Germany and France have a huge representation, even Italy, I have to say, but the smaller countries are not able to constitute, let's say, an unicum. And we wonder if referendum or referenda could be an option to cover democratic, to give a democratic legitimacy to the strategies adopted at the European level. The experts we interviewed were accordingly saying that it would be, democratically speaking, is the best thing to do to give people the right to decide their own destiny. But on the other side, we can see that at the European level there is a general lack of information and education and awareness on general issues. So the first issue right now is to create another kind of educational system which can provide also European ideals of cultural sharing of some kind of ideals in the European level, which is something that is lacking right now. Conclusion. So on one side, we understood that the German approach towards the crisis didn't seem to work so far, and the budgetary consolidation of the countries that are struggling against the crisis doesn't seem to provide the instruments to overcome the crisis. The implementations of in legal terms, the implementations of norms inside the new European institutions don't seem to actually have been discovered something new or anyway invented something new, since they are just putting the same legal terms that were adopted in the 90s already. And the norms that were actually established are considered to be weak or at least faulty. And the democratic deficit has been accentuated by the crisis, both in the sense that European institutions seem to be not so, they seem very distant from the general population, and on the other side also private institutions such as banks, which are considered to be at the first to accuse in the context of the economic crisis, seem to have gained even higher power in the aftermath of 2007-2008. So, and the European and the representation of European countries in the context of European institutions seems to be defined in a not so fair way. So it was our presentation. Thank you for your attention.